Yeah. So, while I was cooking, I was thinking about something, John. I've been thinking, and I just want to propose you a few thoughts here.
All right.
What if I were to tell you that what led us to civil war was an imbalance of power caused by a manipulation of our representation, the three-fifths compromise, realistically.
I
Um,
believe it.
and that led to bad leaders, which
Mhm.
ultimately led us to the Civil War. And then I've been thinking about this. I'm like, what are we going through right now? Well, since 1911, we capped our house. What did that do? It manipulated our representation. Okay, so what did that do? It created an imbalance of power. Citizen to representative ratio has gone from 1 in
Mhm.
220,000 to 1 in 756,000. That has shifted power. That's created an imbalance. And what has that done? It's led to bad leaders.
Yeah.
Look, right or left, we have bad leaders spread all across the spectrum right now. Does that mean that we're destined to war? Or is there a solution?
Well, like anything, when you're driving and you don't change direction, you're going to get the destination you're going to. So, is it a chance that we're gonna? And I would say, saying we're gonna go to war is a big thing, but like I would agree with you that we're in the midst of a lot of upheaval. We've got an economy that seems to be shifting and changing underneath our feet, and we don't have leaders that understand it. And so the fact that we've got bad leaders in Washington, we've got a lot of systemic changes happening to the economy and to our day-to-day lives. It's going to lead to huge problems down the road. And I'd point to this bank collapse on Friday, which was really interesting because it was just a couple of like little levers that seemed to get pulled in the wrong direction, and then boom, you've got a bank that in the grand scheme of things isn't too big, but it was running the payroll for a lot of companies out in San Francisco. So yeah, I think if we don't change direction, we're in for really bad times. If it's not a war, which I, pray God that doesn't happen, but it's going to be some kind of big social upheaval that's going to be bad for everyone. I can
Right.
guarantee you that.
So I've been thinking, like, I know this sounds crazy. I think the answer is actually very easy, right? It's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of time, right? But it's actually very
That
easy.
doesn't sound easy, Jeff.
I mean, I guess like it's not
It's
difficult.
simple. It's very simple.
Think of it like cooking a meal, right?
Yeah.
Like the idea of cooking those wings. What do we have to do? We had to create, like I did this with my kids today. We had to build the dredge. Okay. We
Hmm.
had to, which means we have to get all the ingredients for that, put it all together. We've got to make the ranch sauce from scratch. We've got to make the buffalo sauce from scratch. We've got to make the Asian zing sauce from scratch. Each one of those has an ingredient, right? And we have to
Hmm.
measure them out and we have to put them together. And you have to fry off your chicken. You have to, we had to make coleslaw. That was one of the sides, right? So we have to make the coleslaw dressing. We got to shred the cabbage and the carrots and all that. And you do this and you think at the beginning, you're like, man, this is a lot of work. I don't
Yeah.
know if I want to do all this. It seems complicated and hard. But when you break it down in small little steps, it's not really that hard, right? And if you have somebody leading you, good leaders, it's actually
Mhm.
very enjoyable to do. Something that my son and I like to do together is cook. So thinking about that, I'm like, how can we solve this very large problem? I think the answer is actually very easy. We just try, right?
Yeah.
Like we like I tell myself, you find leaders, okay, encourage them to lead, and then elect better leaders. And so like that's where I think what our organization is targeted at, right? Is what we want to do is we want to engage our citizens because ultimately the problem is a manipulation of the representation. So the solution is for the representation to hold the people in charge accountable. And in order to do that, you need the right tools. And at the Madisonian Republicans, like our focus is giving the right tools to our communities so they can elect better leaders or become better leaders. And we want to be able to do that without costing an arm and a leg because that's part of the problem, right? It's a wealth barrier. Regular people don't have a chance to govern themselves again. We want to give it to them through information and, tools.
Yeah, and it's not, not necessarily, and the leadership is incredibly important. Like you need a chef in the kitchen who understands what's going on and can follow the recipe. But I think the recipe is key, and I think that's the other thing too. Like if you read history, which and we're trying to you know, you don't have to read as many books as Jeff when you come to our meetings. You know, we're distilling it into sort of the key concepts, sort of a recipe that anyone can follow in terms of getting better leadership, sort of what people look for historically, what allows someone to come to power, and then like what's the what how do you actually govern when you're in power, and how do you make things better, and sort of what has worked, you know, the good recipes versus the bad recipes, the things that haven't worked.